Well, hey folks, it's your old pal, King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. Be sure to hit like and subscribe and all that algorithmically good stuff. I'm sure there'll be some interesting little goodies down there in the description box, right down there, with links to things that you would like. Possibly, who knows. Anyway, maybe I'm a bit discombobulated because I just tried to watch an episode of Season 4 of Star Trek Discovery. I don't know why I keep doing this. Like Season 3, I didn't even finish. And Season 4, like, they're good at having, like, premiere episodes for each season, which makes me think, like, oh, maybe this isn't going to be so bad this time. Maybe they finally have gotten their act together. But a few episodes into that season, after that strong opening, and it starts to dissolve. And don't worry, I'm going to relate this all to role-playing games. I'm not just, like, reverting back to my, like, trying to be a Star Trek channel way. It just thanks to the folks over there at Modiphius. Star Trek is a role-playing game. And here's the thing. Am I the only one who finds it weird that Star Trek Adventures by Modiphius, which is currently licensed from CBS All Access and Secret Hideout and Paramount, isn't it weird that their role-playing game, like, is entirely based upon all the classic era Star Trek, and to some degree Star Trek Online, the video game, but does not in any way, in any of the supplements I've seen for it, address any of the stuff that's been going on in their own modern incarnation of Star Trek. No reference to the Kelvin timeline and its starships. No reference to any of the stuff that's happened in Star Trek Discovery or Picard. It's weird. Like, the only thing from the new crop of Star Treks that, you know, had been put out by Secret Hideout and CBS All Access, which is now Paramount Plus, that it all seems to, like, vibe at all with any of the material in this is Star Trek Lower Decks, to a point where I almost secretly suspect that the people who write Lower Decks have at least thumbed through this, because there's just a lot of choices that show has made, even just down to the premise being a Lower Decks thing, which is something that's suggested in here as a potential premise for player character, you know, groups to be playing the Lower Deck characters on their own starship, an off-brand ship set a little bit after the end of the very last of the Star Trek TNG movies. That you know, that's what Lower Decks is, and maybe to a degree that's, you know, like, the first season of Lower Decks was off-putting. It had potential, but like, there's just a few ways it was presented that I found jarring. Season 2, it's almost as if someone there at CBS had, like, actually watched one of my reviews of it, because it kind of addressed several of the things that I've complained about, largely in, you know, being down to, like, you know, Mariner's cool and all. I don't hate the character in and of herself. Just take the intensity level and dial it way the fuck down and allow some of the other characters a chance to actually get a fucking word out. And they did that this season. So, you know, I'm pretty, you know, satisfied with Lower Decks. And I did watch Star Trek Prodigy, which, despite, you know, being billed as being for kids, it's not like for little tiny babies. It's very much, actually, more than anything else, reminded me of Transformers Prime. And Transformers Prime is the one thing that I will give Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci credit for, because that was a show that they had a lot of, you know, creative input on, and producing, and, you know, setting up what it was going to be and all that kind of stuff, if not, you know, writing parts of it themselves. And you know, Transformers Prime, like, regardless of what you might think about the Transformers live-action movies that they had their hands in, or any of the other things that they've done in terms of, like, live-action cinema and television, Transformers Prime is one of, like, easily the top 3 of, you know, Transformers television series. You know, you got to give that to them. And in this kind of weirdly odd way, because of the fact that Star Trek Prodigy has that same kind of tone and kind of same sort of, like, demographic that it's being aimed at, it's not that bad. It's different. It's probably the most different thing they've done. And there's things about it that are a little, like, still kind of, like, it doesn't explain exactly what the fuck's going on. It's just, you know, it seems like it's in the Delta Quadrant. It's obviously some time post-Voyager, Not too far in the future, because they're not. The ship still looks like a relatively TNG era ship, but the characters aren't Starfleet characters. They're a bunch of escaped mining slaves off this one planet that find this ship buried underground and use it to escape. And Janeway's training hologram, thinks that they're all cadets, doing a cadet mission, and so that's why she's allowing them access. It's a bit contrived, and there are things about it that are like, okay, yeah, this is definitely made for like boys ages 8 to 12, but if you go into it knowing that that's what it's going to be like for a show that's for boys 8 to 12, it's pretty damn good, actually. Might actually maybe be the best thing that Secret Hideout has made for Star Trek, and in no small part probably has something to do with the fact that like Nickelodeon has also had a heavy hand in that show's making. But my God, their live action sucks. They don't seem to understand how to tell story fiction, how to tell stories about science fiction. It's just constant melodrama and nonsensical stories. And that's just kind of like, I got 20 minutes into the 3rd episode of this season of Discovery, and I just like had to just turn it off, because it's just constant sobbing and constantly like wringing their hands over their internal traumas and their feelings, and the characters are just so flat and featureless. None of them seem like people that would ever have gotten through Starfleet Academy. And it's just, as I say, it's really funny how none of the stuff from these shows make it into the role-playing game. Now, the thing is these shows are supposedly, the real reason why they're different and more diverse and inclusive than ever before, despite that always being Star Trek's thing. They're supposed to be appealing to the youth. We got to get them youths in on our little Star Trek merchandising scheme. And yet, the role-playing game, which role-playing games are really hot with young people again. It's not just all dudes my age and older who are into this shit. There's actually a bunch of people in their 20s and younger who are into role-playing games again. So you'd think that they would at least have 1 or 2 supplements in this describing, like the 30th century from the last 2 seasons of Discovery, or exploring the storylines between, the end of Nemesis and the beginning of Star Trek Picard, or a technical manual that addresses, like the kind of ship Discovery is, with the spinning disc thing in the middle of the saucer section. Like the Klingons in this role-playing game match TNG era Klingons. Like nothing at all to address the weird blue space orcs of Star Trek Discovery. Let alone any of the spaceship designs for Klingons from Discovery. It's weird. It's weird. It's almost as if the people at Modiphius are wise enough to know that the people who actually pay their bills, their actual real customers for role-playing games, are not the players. It's the damn game masters. And most of the game masters who would be interested in investing this level of money into a Star Trek game don't want to be dealing with, teleporting psychedelic mushroom technology and stuff, maybe? How on earth, of the various things I guess I just ranted about, a 30th century, since they've established some stuff about the 30th century with all the crap about the dilithium burn and the questionability of that, and I would kind of be daring to see them actually try to address that with these, and as some sort of supplement for 30th century Star Trek adventuring. But also having to deal with the fact that you have ships that transform now and reprogrammable matter, and for some reason the starships have nacelles that are detached from the fuselage, which God, the energy consumption issue Star Trek presents just gets worse and worse as time goes on. But I don't know. I think it says something. It says something real deep about what they really think about their product that they would never admit on Twitter. Of course, on Twitter and on social media and to magazines and articles, and to amongst themselves, they're always going to pat themselves on the back about what a great job they're doing for humanity by making these horribly, horribly written Star Trek series. But yet, when they want to license the role-playing game, they don't push their agenda on it, of like they don't want it to be exclusively about their stuff, because like maybe they want the book to sell. I don't know. Food for thought. On a totally different note, I finally got my print copy in of Rocket Cadets in the 11th Dimension. I bring it up because, you know, synergistically, in terms of like tone for a vintage era science fiction sci-fi setting, that's reminiscent of the kind of sci-fi you got in the 60s, like old school Star Trek, or like black and white rocket ship movies from the 50s and stuff. That's the core inspiration of this. This is like actually one of the first, what I would say is a viewer request book I've done. Put out a little thing asking for suggestions on what kind of source books people might like for the books I have written and that people have been kind enough to buy. And I got some suggestions from Shawner Films and basically kind of tried to jam them all into this. Originally it was kind of written as a source book for Escape from Planet Matriarchy. It's compatible with Escape from Planet Matriarchy in terms of like it's a shared setting, and it describes further like another part of the solar system, basically all the worlds in the inner system and in the Kuiper Belt that have ties to NASA in the 25th century. But it got so thick, and the campaign concept for it is so self-contained, I went ahead and put the updated rules for the total party system at the end of this book. So, you know, yeah, either as a source book for Planet Matriarchy, or just standalone by itself, or if you want to pair it up with, you know, We Want Soviet Men, which describes, you know, the communist Starfleet around Jupiter, you get closer to having a complete 25th century solar system setting. The only thing really left to describe is Mars, which eventually I'm going to put out a book which I'm currently wanting to title Cyber Psionic Bionic Cyborgs, and kind of have it both be like a full, you know, write-up for, you know, cybernetic type player characters you can use in all my different kind of games, and also a big juicy section on 25th century Mars, which is this weird collage of American and Japanese cultures. At least, you know, that's how I've been running it so far, so I guess that's what I got to stick with. This one is about, you know, player characters are rocket cadets from NASA who are on a training mission and get sucked into the 11th dimension. It's got, you know, slightly alternate starship design rules from what's in We Want Soviet Men to be, you know, more flavored for NASA, since NASA uses rockets and not, you know, reactionless drive shit like the Soviets do. Full descriptions for like all the major core planets that NASA deals with. That's Mercury, that's Venus, that's Earth, that's Earth's moon, and also Pluto. Also has like a big, thick, like a good half of it is describing the 11th dimension, which is kind of like its own self-contained solar system nebula with breathable air, and some of it is like taking the idea that, you know, like you know, ancient fairy myths are actually aliens, and kind of inverting that a little bit, so that like the aliens from the 11th dimension do actually resemble a lot of our kind of, you know, fairy tale myths about, you know, mythical creatures, except like I've given them all more sci-fi names. So you have insectoids and moloids, rodentoids, and swinoids. There's like a race of, you know, eagle men. There's playable dinosaur lizard men, and were-tigers are all the kind of strange inhabitants you find in the 11th dimension. It's very Flash Gordon-y, obviously, and you know, it has kind of a healthy dash of Spelljammer in it in its own way. I recommend it. I mean, obviously, because I wrote it. Like I said, it's completely standalone on it itself, or you can combine it with Escape from Planet Matriarchy and We Want Soviet Men. Alternatively, you can also use the 11th dimension setting to go along with Amazon Time Barbarians. If you just use this to create a team of Amazon Time Barbarians, and instead of them going to 1999 Earth, they go into the 11th dimension to face, well, you'd have to find out inside who the real villain, who is my version of the Emperor Ming, what would I pull from, you know, Earth history to have as the big nefarious bad guy. Also, since it's a standalone book, you know, if you're intrigued by, you know, the kind of vibe of this kind of vintage sci-fi role-playing game, but you don't necessarily want to get into the weird psychosexual politics of Escape from Planet Matriarchy. This is, you know, much more just kind of a straight-laced, mainstreamy kind of presentation of the setting that doesn't have, like, all the weird shit about, you know, male gaze and, you know, sub-inducers and stuff like that. So anyway, you can get it as a digital download on the Drive-Thru RPG for only $8.99, or you can pick it up on print from Amazon.com. And as I intimated at the beginning of the video, you can find information for that and links in the description box below. Be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe. I'd say hit the dislike button, but you're not allowed to do that anymore. So stay waspinated. Have a good one. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. And for all of our sakes, you better have a fucking good year next year. Jesus Christ, this one.